So welcome back again to this training of winter brooding session. So as we know that winter time is when most people lose interest in terms of keeping of chickens because they hesitate the temperature, they hesitate the mortalities. So before we get to the brooder itself, we need to understand what you have to do as a person, what you have to do as a stockman who is into the breeding or the keeping of those chickens. So there are things that we need to understand. First, you need to use your sense of hearing, you need to use your sense of smell, you need to use your sense of taste, you need to use your sense of sight. So if you use all those senses after this topic, even if we don't get into the brooding itself, then that means you are capable of keeping your chickens because now you understand what is happening in your brooder. So in the stockmanship, we are saying you as the person who is looking after the chickens or these chicks, you have to use your five senses to look after your chicken. Let's get into one by one things that we need to do. That is the sense of sight, the sense of touch, the sense of hearing, the sense of taste, and the sense of smell. How do we use them when we keep our chicks? So most people they just think keeping chickens is about putting water, feed, heat, things like that. They should just be there, but they don't now understand the distribution of those things. So as you enter into the house, I can tell you that your beds are not growing because there is ABC just by looking. So you need to understand, as you look into the brooder, you need to understand the distribution of everything that is in the brooder. For example, let's look at the distribution of your beds. Are they squashed together? Are they well distributed? Are they on one corner? What is the distribution within your brooder? For example, this was not a brooder situation, but I had a farmer who had some chickens. So what happened? She had three chickens that were almost point of laying. So one had started laying, and then when she entered into the fowl run, she discovered that there was a certain egg on one corner and the birds were on one corner. So as she always entered into the fowl run, most of these birds, they could run towards her, the four birds, but that day they all stood by watching her. So as she was wondering, why are these birds not coming, why is the egg over there, trying to think what is happening within the fowl run, she had a slight bite, and it was a snake on the leg. So the chicks or the birds, they can communicate with you through their distribution. So you need also to understand, why are my birds over that side not evenly distributed? So you should also understand the distribution of your birds. So you can even look at them. How are they distributed? Are they distributed very well? Why are they on that side, not on this side? Why are they on this side and not on this side? So like, for example, if your brooder, if there is too much sun entering your brooder on one side, that means also, we'll talk about it also, that means your chicks will be driven to one side and they will squash on that part and competing on food, leaving this other side, because we say one feeder per 25 beds. So that means some of these beds will be squashing over, and you'll have poor uniformity in terms of your growth in your chicken. So you need to understand the distribution of your feeders, again, distribution of your drinkers. You don't put drinkers at one corner, feeders on one corner, how they are really distributed. So distribution within your brooder, you should look, is it presentable as you yourself are looking at it? Is it well presentable? So that's one aspect. And then we look at the respiration of the birds. Before you can hear the sound, you can see it even at a distance. So seeing the bird's respiration is one of the things, and even the bird's behavior. Like on the previous on the distribution, like the birds are on one side, the behavior on my example, that this person used to see the birds coming towards here, but on this date they were stuck on one corner, meaning there was a change in behavior. So it can be change in behavior in terms of feeding, in terms of drinking, resting. So you should know the normal behavior of your chickens. That will also help you to understand if there is any change in your fall run, so that if there is any deviation from the normal that you know of, from the normal that you had some previous batches, or from the normal that you might think this is normal according to maybe the explanations, then that means that change in behavior is negative impact on your bird. So you need also to understand that kind of behavior, and also the litter condition. A lot of people do ask, how often do I change my bedding for my chickens? You don't have to be told, you just have to look. When you tell yourself that this bedding is not good, then it is not good. Don't ask. When you tell yourself that this bedding is not good, it's not good. You don't have to say how often do I change. Some of very good growers of chickens, let's say broilers for instance, they can keep their broilers from day old to up to until they sell without even changing bedding. But we can think of some other farmers, they do change bedding on a daily basis because they want their bedding to be clean. But no, it doesn't. It's not a fact of changing your bedding on a daily basis, especially in winter. You should avoid changing your bedding on a daily basis because also it can affect the management of your temperature. So also you need to balance again the hygienic part. We'll talk about what mainly causes your bedding to become bad. Mainly it's because of your drinkers, and also because the type of bedding that you use and the spillages that your drinkers are doing, they can contaminate or they can make your bedding wet. But if you manage to put or to place your drinkers at the right place at the right time, then you won't have that kind of challenges. And also in terms of the feeders and drinkers, we talked about it, also how they are distributed, their height, are they on the perfect height, especially also on the drinkers. So if you place your drinkers and feeders on the right price, you don't have wastage. And also you look at the feed quality. There's other feeds that if you just look at it, even without anything, you can just say this is fake feed, this feed is not true feed, it's not mixed up to standard. You can just tell by looking at it. Or maybe if you look on the feed, sometimes maybe you have goats, you have pigs, you have chickens. Sometimes because you look on the feed, so this is how the chicken feed looks like, this is how pig feed looks like, because you are observing such kind of things. Even if you a bag of chicken feed falls on the ground, and then maybe the empty bag is lost, you can actually tell because you observe. You don't end up feeding the wrong feed to the wrong animals because you are an observant. So you definitely need to use your eyes as you enter into every fall run. That is the main point that you need to understand. After using our senses of sight, now let's use our senses of listening. Most people will now, when you enter into the fall run, and you have seen that everything looks normal, everything looks okay, now use your sense of hearing. Are you hearing some sounds? Because we said you can look at your bed, and then you can say, oh, that bed can have flu because it's failing to breathe very well. But sometimes it might not show its sneezing or its respiratory noise. You cannot actually see noise, but you can actually hear it. So as you enter into the fall run, also open your ears, listen to any sounds within your fall runs. Are there any leaks of water? If you are using some automated system, are there any fans? Do we have some variations in terms of our fans? What is actually happening? So you definitely have to listen. When the chicks are so young, when the temperature is too low, you can actually tell because of their sounds that the temperature is too low. When the temperature is too high, you can also tell. When they are happy, you can also tell by their sounds. So you need to also to understand the sound, so that when even you are not in the house, or you are in the next room, or when you are outside the brooder, you can actually tell before you actually enter into them forum that these birds are actually okay. So when the birds are actually in a cold state, they actually make some sharp sounds, that they are telling you that the conditions here are not even suitable. So specifically for chicks, let me say on broilers, the broilers are meant to feed, eat, eat, drink, sleep, and grow. So when the conditions in that house doesn't make them to eat, and they're sleeping and they're crying, they're not there to cry, they're just there to eat, grow, and they're on the market. So that's why we breed these chickens. We need them to be there on the market, produce eggs. So if they spend most of their time making those kinds of sounds, crying, too much heat, getting stressed, now they are going to affect our production. So you definitely need to give them a good environment. So use your senses of hearing to actually listen very attentively to how these birds communicate with you. So like for example, on layers, some people also ask me that my layers are not laying very well. Yes, sometimes it can be because of winter, because of whatever, but even if the brooding stage, it also affects our laying production at the point of laying, or in the production cycle, because when we fail to manage our birds during its early stages of production, that means we are going to have challenges even if at the birds grow. Like for example, most people have the challenge of ascites at 4-5 weeks, but this kind of disease, it actually starts when the bird is still young, during the first few weeks of production. So the first few weeks of production actually affects the whole system of animal production, of poultry production, whatever animal or whatever poultry enterprise that you are in, be it broilers, be it heritage breeds, indigenous chickens, layers, or hybrids or crossbreeds, whatever chicken that you are doing, the first few weeks or the first brooding phase, it affects very well. So you need to definitely give more attention to them. The sense of feeling. Feeling is not only the sense that you need to do it by your hands, but you can actually feel the air, that this air is hot, this air is humid, it's cold, it's fast, there's too much wind, it's too speedy. You can actually feel the air within the environment. As soon as you enter into your brooder, you can actually feel that this air is not good, this air is not suitable, it's stiff, it's hard. So you need to feel the air as soon as you enter the brooder, that there is a certain wind that is blowing from this direction, there is a certain heat that is coming from this direction. So you, as a person entering into the brooder, you should be able to feel the air within your brooder. You should also be able to see that, for example, when you feel that the brooder is good for you, normally the brooding phase, when the temperature within the brooder is good for you, then it's not good for the chicks. Chicks temperature, they have actually up to about 40 degrees Celsius, their normal temperature, and as human beings, our temperature is about 36 degrees Celsius. That is our temperature. So that means when you are feeling that the temperature is okay, to chicks the temperature is cold. So the temperature on the brooding part should be a little bit warmer than the normal temperature that you might feel as a human being. Like when you are indoors, the normal room temperature, like 22 degrees Celsius, is normal and it's good for human beings, and it's a good temperature for human beings. But on chicks, 22 degrees Celsius, or the normal room temperature, when you feel that this kind of temperature is good for you, then definitely for your babies it's actually not good. It have to be warmer, warmer than what we as human beings would need. And also we can feel the feed, like sometimes you can actually see that this feed, it looks like it's wet, but you don't actually just look and then you leave it. You have to feel how wet is it, what made it wet, then you actually give decisions basically on after seeing, after feeling it. And even on the bedding, you can actually see that this bedding is wet by the look of the eye, but sometimes you have to go and feel how wet is it, how distributed is the wet area is. You can actually now feel the bedding, so that you can actually have to change and you rectify the cause. So the sense of feeling is one of those things that you definitely have to use. You don't need to be told that. Sometimes you might see, sometimes the bedding might be bad in terms of the appearance as you look. You would find out that road runners, maybe in the rural areas, they might be staying in chicken litter only, no bedding or what, but they can survive no smell sometimes when you enter into those forums. But because there is no moisture within the bedding, then the bedding becomes okay. So sometimes as a farmer, maybe your chicks, they've left with about 3 days, your bedding is kind of a little bit dirty, but it's dry. So you can actually say, okay, you can keep the beds, because being dirty and when it's dry, it actually no much, I'm not saying it doesn't have effect, but it has less effect than compared to wet bedding within your foreign. So you definitely have to maintain, especially the moisture part, and keep your bedding dry. And so how do you do it? You have to feel it, and when the wet part, mainly where we put our drinkers, you now have to remove that wet part, replace with dry bedding. And also I would advise to invest more in automated systems. It's actually cheaper to invest in automated systems in terms of the management that you're going to do, and also the risk of spread of diseases that you are going to face as you are going to keep your chickens. Now the sense of smell. Sometimes when you enter into other fowl runs, as soon as you enter, you get some sharp smells, normally the ammonia smells that do cover you as you enter into the fowl runs. Normally early in the morning, for those who don't understand good hygienic practices within the brooding system, they are normally being affected by the ammonia gases that do accumulate within their forests. And normally it's because of poor hygiene, because of high humidity conditions, because of too much leaks, poor aeration. Sometimes we'll talk about the housing. It also affects these kind of smells. Most farmers build poultry houses like tobacco barns. I can say that when you don't have like automated systems, you definitely need to increase more ventilation than the walling part, because those kind of walls, they actually reduce the ventilation, whereby to clear out the amount of air that can be inside our brooders. So we definitely need to have as much ventilation as possible. So we will touch this in the housing part of our fowl runs, because it's also going to affect the brooding phase that we will be talking about later. So the smells, we have to keep the environment. As soon as you have those sharp smells, you definitely don't have to think, shall I clean, or you definitely have to clean. So some of the things, even if some of the diseases are like infectious coryza, when you enter into a foreign with infectious coryza, you can actually have the smell. You can actually smell it. So those kind of things, as a farmer, you should be able to identify those kind of smell. What causes this smell? Rotten feed. When you enter, are they like the rates? Do we have rates over here? You can actually smell the smell of rat waste. So, and also you have to utilize your sense of taste. So this one it also applies to normally those who do keep a number of animals. So sometimes, even if you are a farmer and you have some of your workers who are feeding your animals, you should be able to identify taste of your feeds. Maybe you are feeding both chickens and pigs. Some people do give pig feed to chickens, but sometimes they can have the same protein, the same energy, but there's a deviation or a difference in terms of the salt part. So even if you test pig feed and chicken feed, you can actually sense the difference in terms of taste as per the salt element. So what happens to salt now? When you feed your chickens too much salt, that means they're going to drink too much water. When you now cook them, they form a froth. When you're cooking them, when you're cooking and you add salt, that froth that comes out is the same way that when you feed your chickens with too much salt, it also affects the quality of your meat that you're going to produce. So don't be like some people saying you can do it. Please, I won't advise you to do that. So testing your feed, it actually helps you, like when you go into your fowl runs, maybe you're not the one who is doing the feeding, but maybe your workers are doing it, and now you know the taste of pig feed and chicken feed. So when you test those two, you avoid also mixing of maybe your workers doing those kind of things. So definitely you need to understand these as a farmer.